In this video, we're going to talk about how to find the unit rate when given a table. Like we did with the unit rates, finding them from a graph, we're going to take some notes first. You need to be able to label any vertical table and any horizontal table with the labels X and Y with those variables. On the EOG, it's not very common for them to already have it labeled for you. So when you take a look at this type of table, we call this a vertical table. You see the line here is a vertical line. Basically, vertical lines go up and down. And so you'll notice that X is on the left and Y is on the right. That's how it's going to be with every single vertical table that you're going to meet this year. When you look over here, this is called a horizontal table. Horizontal has to do with the word horizon, where the sky meets the ground, and it's going to be a line that goes from the left to the right, and these are horizontal tables, and the X will be on the top and the Y will be on the bottom of the table. This is very confusing to kids because I just taught you that the formula for unit rate is Y divided by X, and that's exactly opposite of the setup in the table. In the table, you have X in the top and Y in the bottom. And when you look at the equation, the Y is on top and the X is below. So you're going to have to pay close attention to this. You're going to have to do a lot of example practice problems so that you can remember this and not get confused. Let's look at two more examples. This is a very common way for it to be listed on the EOG, where they just give you the words. And you have to know that time goes with the X variable and distance goes with Y. This would be the horizontal table. Just like the last example, X was on top, Y is below. And when you look at the formula, it's backwards. It's opposite of that. The unit rate formula is K equals Y over X. Over here with the vertical table, X goes on the left and Y goes on the right. So if I were you on a sheet of paper, I would write the words horizontal, and I just draw a table and show that the order is X on top and then Y below. And then I'd also write a vertical table. I'd write the word vertical. And I would show an example table where you see that X is on the left and Y is on the right. That's how it's always going to be. And that should be enough for your notes section. All right, so now that we've talked about where X is and where Y is, we can go ahead and look at your worksheet on unit rate and tables. Take a look at example 1. The first step is going to be to label your horizontal table. And we know that the X is always on top and the Y is below. So that means that X represents days and Y represents miles. Now to find unit rate, the steps are the same as when you were looking at a graph. The first thing you have to do is choose a coordinate. Remember, any coordinate will do. You just cannot choose 0, 0. So I could use 210. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose 210. Then I'm going to record my unit rate formula. Remember, another name for unit rate is constant of proportionality. We haven't talked about that in a while, so I'm going to write that out again. Constant of proportionality. Constant of proportionality. So constant of proportionality, unit rate. You can also use the variable k to represent unit rate. I'm going to fill in the y value first. The y value is the 10. And 10 goes with miles. So you just follow along. I see the 10, I see the miles, I see the y. Those all go together. Then I'm going to fill in the x. X represents days, and the number that goes with the x is 2. So I'm going to write days. And recall that the word that I put in between is the word per. And then to find the unit rate, you divide. So 10 divided by 2 is the same thing as saying half of 10, and the answer would be 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And we also need to record the units. So it's 5 miles per day is the unit rate. Now, it wouldn't have mattered if I would have chosen a different point. For example, let's say that instead I chose the point 420. I write out my formula for unit rate for constant of proportionality, and the y value is 20, and 20 goes with miles. Then I record the number of days. Days is what x represents. And 20 divided by 4, you're going to get the same answer, 5. And it's 5 miles per day. I'm just going to abbreviate it this time, so 5 miles per day. And if you think about this last point, it would be 30 divided by 6, which is also going to give you 5. Before we talked about this in another video, but I just want to remind you that the K, or the unit rate, is constant, meaning it's going to be constantly the same. In this entire table, since this table is proportional, you're always going to get the answer 5 miles per day for the unit rate. Now you can see that I've cleared the ink, and I'm going to scroll over to the right side of the screen, and it says equations. So I already found out that the unit rate was 5 miles per day. To write the equation, all I'm going to do is fill in y equals blank x. I'm going to fill in the 5 right here. So the equation would be y equals 5x. That looks messy. Let me try to write that equal sign again. Having a little bit of trouble with my pens. That's supposed to be an equal sign. So y equals 5x. This equation is different than the equation, the way it's set up for unit rate. So the unit rate equation, when we're trying to figure out unit rate, we're going to use that equation to find unit rate. This is a totally, I shouldn't say totally different equation, but it probably would help you to think of it that way as a totally separate equation. It looks different. It's not set up the same as this equation. So try to separate those two in your mind. It'll get easier as we do more examples.